Welcome back to Split the Party. I'm back after a couple of weeks, your host Steve Osmond, and with me I have Zach Parkin and Mike Wilson. We're talking about the new set coming out from Magic the Gathering, Dragons of Tarkir. So guys, we've all gotten a chance to take a look at the cards. Why don't we start with you, Zach? What are you really excited about in this set? What are you really looking forward to?
I'm really excited about Sidisi, the Undead Visor. When she comes into play, you can sack another creature and just tutor for a card in your deck, and she can pair really well with her other self that got released in Fate Reforged, where you end up making tokens with her when you mill a creature. So if you have Sidisi already in play from Fate Reforged and she makes a token, play new Sidisi and sack a token, go search for a card.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've got the new exploit mechanic where you're trashing, in this particular instance, a token that you're not that attached to go get a card you really need to put into your hand. That's awesome, and that's why that exploit mechanic is going to be really nice. All those come into play effects. You know, when this card hits the table, I get to do this, and then I'm going to bounce it out and bounce it back on the table so that I can do that again because it was a lot of fun the first time.
Yep.
All right, Mike, how about you? What are you really looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the continuation of the command cycle that, the original command, like Cryptic Command, they've now re-released 3 additional ones that are multicolor. The one that's coming to mind right now is the red-green one that has 4 different effects that you can pick at the time of casting 2 of them to resolve. So, it's a very flexible card, and it gives you a lot of options. So, whatever deck you're running it in will sit there and, probably have the answer you're looking for.
Yeah. And they're 2-color, which also goes along with the flavor of the set. So we've gone back, we've changed time. He freed Ugin, and now instead of the Khans being around and the 3-color wedges, we now have dragons who are dual color, which is why they're having the dual color commands, I would assume.
Yep.
That's actually what I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about the storyline itself. I've always been interested in Magic's fiction. They've done a really good job of keeping it up in the stories and in the cards. And I think it's interesting that when everyone else in fiction, science fiction, fantasy everywhere says, don't mess with the time stream, Wizards are like, ha! We don't care.
Yep.
We're totally going back and just messing everything up. And you were telling me about another Planeswalker who actually has had a major change made to her because of that change.
Yeah, from Fate Reforged, one of the sort of con leaders, Narset, she, in this timeline for the story, when Sarkhan went back through time and saved Ugin, which completely changed the timeline, when we get jumped back into the future, Narset is no longer there as a sort of leader of the clan because she gets pretty much, I would say, excommunicated, almost killed by a dragon, and it ignites her spark, and she becomes a planeswalker.
That's pretty awesome. And
Yep.
see, that's all in the fiction, and so they're going to have cards based around that. They'll make mechanical changes to it.
And even just the changes to Sarkhan. I mean, Sarkhan and Khans was a mono-red planeswalker, and now he's a Tamir-based planeswalker.
Yep, and so that's why I like the fiction, is they write these stories and then they reflect the fiction in the cards and in the mechanics and in the sets. That being said, so mechanics, we've got some new ones coming out. We've already talked about Exploit a little bit. We also have Formidable.
Yeah, Formidable is sort of a new take on Ferocious from the past 2. Ferocious was if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you get an effect.
Okay.
But with Formidable, it's total power amongst all your creatures, and it has to exceed 8 power, 8 or more, and then you'll just get an effect for it. It actually checks twice. In the fact that when you first cast the card, if it needs it right then and there, it'll check there, and then it'll check after the point when it resolves, correct?
Yep.
When it actually resolves.
Yep.
So if at any point in between there somebody makes it so you no longer have 8
8
power,
power.
guess what?
Yep.
It fizzles.
Yep.
But still, that's really interesting. So they take Ferocious, which required the 1 creature,
Yeah.
and now, even though the number is higher, it's spread out between all of your creatures, so it's actually more attainable, and you can see this mechanic having play in more various styles of creature-based decks than you
Yeah.
could have with Ferocious.
Instead of it just being like where we saw Ferocious the most was like in Tamur Monsters and whatnot,
Mhm.
where you have these big 4 power creatures just consistently being played. You can
Right,
play it in a token deck where you just have a ton of little tokens, and formidable now. So
That's awesome. So then we've also, we touched on exploit, we touched on formidable, we've got megamorph, which is, to me, just kind of a vanilla mechanic. But it will be interesting to see what they do with it. But you were telling me about some of the changes to mechanics that are going and coming back.
Yeah, prowess is no longer going to be a mechanic in this set, which was a standard mechanic in the last two.
Mhm.
And they're bringing rebound back from Selendikar block, which always was a fun card to play back then. And
Mhm.
and I'm looking forward to see what they add onto it.
Yeah, and how they use it.
Yeah.
Just a little explanation. So rebound, when you cast a spell that's got rebound on it, on the following turn during your upkeep, you get to cast another copy of that spell for a 0 mana cost. As long as you resolved the first casting of the card, correct?
Yep.
As long as it wasn't
Countered.
countered,
Yep.
then you get
Yep.
the second casting. So I'm assuming that if they're bringing it back, their designers have got some really great new ideas and some great new uses for it.
And one of them is that Planeswalker he was talking about,
Yeah.
Narset. Her -2 is to give any spell you cast, any instant or sorcery.
I believe it's
Rebound.
the next instant or sorcery you cast will have rebound. So
Yeah, so she's going to be putting it on everything. And
Yeah.
again, also talking with exploit, you're going to be seeing a lot of things getting bounced back and forth. Now you're going to be seeing things getting casted multiple times.
Yep.
That's going to be really interesting. I think they've done a great job with this third set. For this being their last third set,
Yep.
I think they're really trying to knock it out of the park with this one, and it looks like they're doing a great job.
Yep, 82 cards in so far. It looks very
Yep,
good.
and I'll be excited to see every last card that comes out, and I can't wait to actually get my hands on some of them. But I think that's all we've got for today. So thanks, guys, for coming in. I'd like to
Thank
thank
you.
our sponsors, Dual Bus Design, Sound G Entertainment, and Excelsior Games and Comics. I'll see you guys in the Nerdverse.